GTV, 30 seconds.
10 seconds.
Really?
That's what we do.
10 seconds. Good evening and welcome to the September 6, 2023 meeting of the Goffstown Economic Development Council. If you could stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. If we could go starting with Joanne. Joanne, for roll call, sorry.
Are you doing introduction?
Yes, I am, sorry.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Jim Craig, Select Board Rep.
Gail Lebrecht, Recording Secretary.
Chad Bowen, Chair.
Chris Barrett, alternate member.
Charlie Birchmeyer, member.
Sarah Smith-Trapakis, member.
Melanie Renfrew Hebert, member.
Dick Bruno, member.
Great. Okay. First thing I'd like to do, if those of you who are here, if you get a chance to read the minutes. Anyone want to make a motion?
Are we doing corrections first?
Sure.
Page 4, second to last paragraph, we're talking about points that I brought up. Third line down, did mind it wasn't useful. I think it's supposed to say, did they find it wasn't useful?
Did they find it wasn't useful? Okay. Any other corrections from anybody? Is that a motion with those corrections?
Sure, yes.
Sure, okay. We got a motion.
Seconded.
A motion from Charlie, second from Melanie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I know some have to abstain.
Abstain.
Yep, got it. Okay. Thank you very much. So we're going to start with what we had talked last month quite a bit about an economic development director and what our options are. So I know, Joanne, you wanted to explain this part a little bit to us?
Excuse me, yes. Oh, what am I doing? So, in your packet, there is a little story about each town and what they're doing or what they did. And I thought, excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're going to rush. We're going to get through this fast.
I thought the town of Bedford had a very interesting story once I started to look into it. So years ago, back in, I think it was 2009, the town had formed an economic development commission, but it was only for 1 year. And the town administrator at the time, he's no longer with us, but Rick Marcoux, I think was his name. He was in charge of it, and there was one select board on there, and the rest were volunteers. And they they were charged by the town council with really looking into the whole, and don't forget this was 2009, we were in a recession then, why, things weren't picking up, what the businesses were doing, whether they wanted to expand, why some were leaving, things like that. And they did a year's study worth of work, and it was fascinating to look at all of they held public forums with the business owners, the public, and there's a report on it. But the bottom line was, when they were finished with the year, I'm sorry, I have a frog in my throat, they decided to make two recommendations. One was to form what they called a Bedford Business Resource Group. And this group would consist of volunteers and one select board member. They have a town council, one counselor. And they were basically charged with going out to these businesses and seeing how they could help improve things and get things going. Now, it took about 15 years for that to happen in Bedford to where it is now with all of the activity that's going on over there. However, they did have a great base to start with all of the work that they had done back in 2009. Obviously, some of those businesses are no longer there, and others have joined the town. But they did put things in place. They knew, certain areas of town, like out by the airport, heading towards the airport, and where Whole Foods and those stores are now. They knew that those were the places to focus on one-on-one. And so that went on for a year, and they made a recommendation to either hire a full-time economic development director. This was before the committee, to hire a full-time economic development director or this volunteer group. The town council decided to go with the volunteer group. They never did hire a full-time economic development director, even to this day. So basically, from what I could tell now, the town manager, he is also a member of the planning board in Bedford. They work by a charter. They're a different form of government than we are. He sits on the planning board. He's also responsible for economic development as well as the planning director, so they kind of work together on that. And as you can see, Bedford is thriving right now with businesses. However, we can't really compare ourselves to Bedford because they obviously have great advantage over what we have here. They have several exits off of the highway. I mean, they're in a prime location right next to the airport, and they have several different types of zoning versus what we have. We have kind of the plain type zoning. They have different innovative ideas out over there. So that's what they've done. So currently that's why they don't have an economic development director, because they've decided to just follow the path that was laid out for them back in 2009. The city of Concord eliminated the economic development director position. She had been there for 4 years. Back in 2001. She had come in, I don't know if anyone was here at the time, but she had come in and talked to us and told us, and she was sort of a dynamo, I thought, very full of ideas, and she was full of energy. Unfortunately, they decided that they only wanted not even a director, but a part-time economic development project manager, fellowship position, they called it. And they were establishing this position to assist the team members with administrative tasks for future projects. So she was basically there more for the administrative end of things. They felt that with the planning director, that most of the city's economic development had been project-centered and not focused on bringing in new jobs or companies. So that position that was also working with existing people, and the director of redevelopment, downtown services and special projects became in charge, and the directors, they said that the director's position failed to provide sufficient returns in terms of the tax base generation to warrant funding the position, because I think the salary was like roughly about $110,000. The town of Derry does have an economic development director. They did, in 2010, have an economic development corporation. I think it's probably similar to our industrial corporation. And they had a director, and he was eliminated. So 8 years later, they decided to hire a director. The town hired the director rather than the Economic Development Corporation. They do not have an economic development committee. The town of Exeter is the same thing. They have a director of economic development, but no economic development committee. The city of Manchester in 1999 organized a 501c4 called the Manchester Development Corporation, and they were supporting economic development initiatives. Now, I don't know where they get their money from, but I'm assuming it's donations. And they are able to help with grants and, things that we have no capability of doing. So it's not really on the same level, but I thought I'd mention it. The thing I liked about the page that the Manchester Economic Development Department, I think they're called, has is if you go to their page on their website, it has several different choices for links that brings you directly to the information. One is for residents, one is for developers, one is for contractors. You know, there's all these different choices depending on what you're looking for. If you want to build a house, you hit the contractor one. If you want information on available properties, and they are linked directly, which we are not, to the New England Commercial Property Exchange with real-time updates. We are linked somehow to something. I'm not sure what it is. I'd have to check with Derek. But it doesn't seem to update that often. And I know we're not paying for it, so it's probably not very useful. They do have an economic development director who's hired in February of 2022. That position had been vacant since October of 2019. And the city of Nashua hired their economic development director in May of 2023. So on the next page, you can read this at your leisure. This is just from one of the forums that Bedford did back in 2009, and they just some of the questions they asked and how the answers were identified, and just kind of gives you a little synopsis of what the people were thinking back then. And again, it was a different economy, but we're not sure how this economy is going right now, especially with the elections coming up. Do you want me to just keep going? Or
No,
do you
I think
want me to
we
stay
can-
on that subject.
We can pause there for a second. I know that you and I had tried to connect in between last meeting and this one, and we couldn't.
Yeah.
So I think, given this information, which was certainly helpful, we can try again in between this meeting and the next, and maybe come up with what we think are reasonable options to present to the entire committee. Does anyone disagree, or everyone think that's okay to do? Okay. So we'll just try again in between to have that conversation and see what we can bring back
Okay.
next month.
One of the things I wanted to show you guys was, this is the current zoning map of the town. It says 2021, but we didn't change any zones. We're going to put this that maybe people can gather around and put it over here. I just want to explain a few things.
Is it the same one?
That's what's over there, isn't it?
What's that date on that one?
2015?
Yeah, that's old.
Should we replace it? Should we just put that one up there?
We should.
We should.
Afterwards we can.
Okay.
Or you want to do it beforehand?
I can do it
and
right
then
now.
just stand over there?
Yeah.
I'll take this one down.
That's
Put it over it.
perfect.
Right.
And then maybe this one will not be touched again to 2030.
Right?
Let's hope not.
We've made our mark on the town.
Your legacy is secure.
So now I need my glasses. So I asked the town assessor if he could run a report for me to show what the different zones are and how much land we have in those zones. Because one of the things everyone keeps trying to do is bring in more commercial, industrial somewhat, but people seem to be more focused on commercial. And unfortunately, we have a grand total in our town of 211 acres of commercial land, which is nothing. It's 0.9% of the total acreage in town, which is very, very small. And the assessment of those parcels is $159,965. So I'm looking at this thinking, okay, do we need to increase the commercial land? However, we would probably want to put together a committee and really take a really in-depth look, because lots of the land that we would want to maybe rezone to commercial. It doesn't have any public utilities, and that's probably the biggest problem.
Joey, can I stop you? Is that built and unbuilt?
It's total, yeah.
It's total?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, some of the commercial land in the last few years anyway, has been used for residential projects have been approved on commercial land. As well as some parcels in Pinardville, especially like along Mass Road, you may find houses there, but the town at one point in time went ahead and rezoned the land commercial. Doesn't mean it's all being used as commercial, it's just zoned that way. The other land that you could kind of look at would be the commercial industrial flex zone, which has 782 acres. Now, just to give you a comparison, the agricultural zone has 14,907 acres. That's 67% of the town. And we all know that in the agricultural zone, you may find a few parcels, but for the most part, it's septic and wells. And so the thing that I'm seeing, after being here for a while is the sewer commission is an enterprise fund. They collect money from the users, and the same as the water precincts. They only collect money from the users, and that's what they use. So it seems in our current CIP, the projects that the sewer commission is working on are all, replacement. And for the majority, I think all of them are in Pinardville, because the utilities in Pinardville are falling apart. So, they really are. So the sewer commission has been working every year certain sections of Pinardville and replacing the pipes. So they are not looking at, and I don't think they even would have the money to expand the sewer lines unless the town got involved, which would have to come through the select board and propose a bond or something. But in order to do that, you have to have a plan in place and a project and what you want to do. You just can't go out there and float a bond for sewer extension. And especially right now with the taxes going up, probably would never pass. So we're in sort of a conundrum because we'd like to bring more businesses in. In fact, I think I told you this story already. We have an existing business in Pinardville. It's in the industrial zone, and they want to expand, not necessarily where they are because there's no room for expansion, but they'd like to find another parcel or even another building that's large enough, and there's nothing. There's nothing at all that would, fit the bill of what they're looking for. So we do have, I don't want to say we don't have anything happening. We had a TRC meeting the other day, and we have, do you know where the new car wash is, and the Hawk, which hasn't started yet, the trailer business? Well, in between those two, there's an empty lot. There have been trucks parked there for quite a while now. The guy who owns that is going to subdivide off the front portion, and there's a company there. I'm actually meeting with them tomorrow, that they are looking to do some sort of a retail, I don't know exactly what it will be, but it's some kind of a retail store. And then this fella who owns the property, it would be a condominium, and he would own the back portion. Well, they both would own the whole thing, but his business would go on the back portion. And he restores like antique cars and like fancier upgrade cars, that kind of thing. So he would put his business back there. Currently, he's in Pinardville in a small, right off Daniel Plummer Road, where there's some small units there. And then we have 2 more residential projects that are coming before the planning board.
On that site to the right of that site, there's a lot of activity going on there now. They're basically clear cutting.
Yes, they
That's
clear cut
all.
that whole area, And the lot after Hawks
Yeah.
to the north,
Right?
we have a proposal that's, it's not really, I can't really say what it is, but it's an existing business that's looking to purchase that land for a retail.
Okay.
So
it's not residential units
No,
again?
no.
Okay.
The residential units, no, I take that back, I'm sorry. That is the residential
It
units.
is.
That's the Ed Monte property with
Oh.
the 30 unit, 3-bedroom, 30 units. The other project that I'm talking about is Tatro Drive where the Shell station is. If you're facing the Shell station, it's to the left, it's to the south of the Shell station.
Okay.
And and it's all in the same area. It's like the retail, the condo, and then this other business. So that is really picking up. But I don't know about you, but I have seen such an increase in traffic through this town, and no one's talking about that. What do we do about it? It's, I grew up in New Jersey, so I don't mind traffic. But I think people are starting to really complain, like, what are we gonna do? Because it's not just coming from this town, it's coming from New Boston, where, everybody who's traveling through. But it's not just in the evening any longer, it's all afternoon, which it never was before, you've been here a long time. So, I almost think we need to have, maybe some sort of, either a meeting with all the boards to talk about these issues, or maybe some sort of a public forum to talk with the public about what they would like to see in town. But something that includes people and their opinions. Because if we're going to rezone, it's not this board, it's the planning board, so first of all, you have to convince them to put something on the agenda. And you really need to look into it, like I said, because you can't build a larger business, or even most businesses, they don't want to be on wells and septics. They want
Agreed.
public services.
So as a synopsis, it's a pretty dire picture for new economic development is what you're putting out there. Because if you look at what you just said, we could rezone, but then we'd have to create a subcommittee to do that, or not ad hoc, whatever you want to call it, committee to do that. But then even if we do that, the sewers enterprise fund, they don't have the money, we'd have to get that passed, it wouldn't get passed. So even if we tried to rezone and did all that, so I think what we need to really do between this month and next is you and I have a real conversation about what solutions are there, because I think you are acutely aware and generally aware of the major roadblocks we have to this. So what are we doing here as a committee if we can't do anything? I think it's a really important, it's a tough question to ask and a tough question to answer, but it's a really important one. So I think we will meet in between. Anyone else want to join, just shoot me an email or give me a call. That'd be great. Or Melanie.
I don't have, it doesn't have to be during the day. I
Yeah,
can meet after.
yeah. We have to have less than 5, but
Yeah.
let me know. But I think if we can just do that and come up with some either solutions or realize that there are none, and then come back with what our purpose is and refocus what that would be, I think is important.
The other thing is, just keep in mind that the existing businesses is where you get the growth from. Like 80% of the increase in business that you get are from existing businesses.
Right, but correct me if I'm wrong. We have, so you're talking about a lot of the new residential projects that are popping up.
Yeah.
So we're seeing an increase in Goffstown residents, which will naturally lead to an increase in the need for emergency services and all the things that come with that, which will then naturally lead to an increase in taxes. Even though you're sharing the wealth a little bit,
Yeah.
it's still going to lead to increases.
They pay an impact fee. No,
Sure.
I take that back.
New businesses.
Only residential pays an impact fee. So when the units go up, before they can get their certificate of occupancy, depending on what it is, there's all different prices, but like for a new home, they pay close to $9,000. Part of that most of it goes actually to the schools.
Yep.
And then the rest of it goes to fire, police, parks and rec, I think that's
But
it.
it's a one-time.
It's a one-time payment.
So as I understood it, for the years I've been here, part of what we do in creating new businesses is to try to ease that tax burden. So I think we have to have that conversation, because yes, existing businesses and supporting them is part of what we do, we have to. But as I understand it, when a business does better, it's not like that means more taxes come into the town. That's not how it works here. And I'm glad that it doesn't. But I'm saying, new
Yeah.
businesses are where we are looking to help ease the tax burden on a
Yeah.
typical resident. And with what you just said, it's looking like that's a very tall order for us. So I think we have to have you, myself, and I know Melanie, you raised your hand, so definitely three of us in between have a conversation about what are we doing here, and what should we, and bring it back to all of us to have a discussion at Mountain Base and then figure out a way forward. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Because
Okay.
I don't know if there would be enough time this year, but the planning board usually starts to meet on zoning changes around the end of October or some middle of, to like the middle of November, and then everything has to be prepared for the hearings.
Yep. I don't know if we'd have time this year, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I want to have a direction,
Okay,
right? Not just bounce
yeah,
from one idea to another and get nothing done. And if we don't think we can find a direction, then it's a real tough conversation, but I think it should be had.
like maybe one of the projects we could look at is possibly the old Shaw's Plaza. I mean, that's looking really dull.
Yep, I mean, that would at least give us something
Yeah.
within our purview that we could work on. I agree, and that may be what we start with and go
Yeah.
from there. But I've personally been very big, and I think some people I've talked to here are very big on this idea of zoning and expanding, and even sewer, but electricity and all the things that we can try to do. And so I don't think we ever give up on that, but maybe we just have to have that conversation in between and come back.
Do you remember when, I think his name was Bill, was on this board, he worked for Liberty,
Steve.
Liberty Utilities?
Yeah, I remember Steve. Yeah.
Steve.
Yep.
We went up there and met with them,
Mhm.
his boss or whoever it was, and they had taken all of the information from us as to along that area between, like, say, for instance, like Main Street,
Yep.
where it meets up with South Mass, all the way down to, like, what's the name of that service station? I'm aging myself, service station. The gas station on the corner of Henry Bridge.
Irving.
Irving, yep.
Station.
All the way down that way. And they, so we provided them with every lot and what was currently on there, and then, there were, at that time, there were a lot of vacant lots, and they looked at the information, and they looked at the potential, and who could, get onto, hook onto it and all of that, and the costs and all of that. And they basically came out and said, it's not worth it to us right now. But
I
that
remember.
was,
How long ago
I would
was
say
that?
5 years ago, maybe, roughly. And, things have changed over there, and I think they're going to keep changing in that same area. I think you're going to see some of those buildings possibly demolished at some point and bought up by developers and changed into something a little bit more, maybe providing more taxes.
Well, the opportunity lies along that whole corridor. That's always
Yeah.
been the way. Master plan shows that. I mean, I was on master plan committees 20 years ago. We were talking about that corridor. The problem is it's almost like spot zoning when you're getting residential
Yeah.
in an area. I mean, there's those two major projects, and I'm certainly not criticizing any board in the town. It's hard because you're not really planning.
Yeah,
You're just saying, okay, this is somebody that wants to come in and build in our town. Sounds great, but what's the
Yeah.
outcome of that?
yeah,
We haven't increased, we'll get some impact fees, there's no question, but now what about the long-range impact? You talk about traffic, I mean, that's a perfect example. So, I think, we used to have an all-boards
yeah.
meeting. I don't know, it
did.
wasn't every year, but it was
I think
where
it
the
was
boards
every
could get
year.
and sit together, whether it be the chair people together, and just sit there and brainstorm and say, look at, how does this fit into the
Yeah,
master plan of the town?
We used to have it at St.
We're just
A's.
skipping around trying to, okay, we'll fill that spot, we'll fill that spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's what we want to do. It should be a planning organization. I mean, we're obviously just a portion of that,
yeah.
But our piece has to fit into the planning piece, which fits into the overall town's projections as to what they want to become. There's
Yeah.
no question we're a bedroom community. I mean,
Right.
we can't get away from that. But the fact is, there are some opportunities that we may be missing out. I look at, and we still don't know what's going to happen with the villa
No.
piece. We have, no
Well,
idea what's going
That's what started the conversations with Liberty Utilities, because the people who own the villa, their business in Hudson, I'm not sure what they do, but they said they would move it to the villa property. They didn't promise they wouldn't destroy the building, but, but they needed, is it gas? Gas, they needed.
Yeah, I said electricity, I
gas.
meant gas though.
Yeah,
Yep.
gas.
Yeah.
And they weren't willing to, pay for it.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so as a pause on this, we'll meet in between and have a conversation and bring it back. So Melanie certainly, but if anyone else wants, let me know, and as long as we stay under quorum, we can do it. And then the next piece of new business is the property tax exemption recommendation. Is that the New Balance that does piece?
yeah, so this is what Derek had sent over.
Okay.
The town of Londonderry just recently used it, and he was asking if the Economic Development Commission would, or not commission, council, I always call you the wrong thing. The council would be interested in recommending it, and then it would have to go to the town meeting for adoption.
And this, to be clear, is, because I know that we were just spending a lot of time talking about new business and new zoning versus maybe going to what I call the Fun City Plaza, and basically filling in where there's vacancies. This would count for people who are trying to fill in those vacancies, right? Any new business?
Yes.
Okay, so just being clear on that.
So the one we have now, it's the 79E, it's for replacement.
Right.
This would be, to fix up what's there.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a brand new building.
Sure. So I'm not, don't want to take advantage of my spot as chair, but it sounds like a no-brainer to me if we're looking for new business that we would want to adopt something like this. Or it's not, I know we can't adopt it, but recommend it officially.
Yeah, so he's saying here, if adopted at town meeting, this could be used in the development of commercial industrial uses. And he wanted to know if the EDC would like to investigate this further to possibly bring forward to the selectmen this fall. Do you want to take a vote on this, just so it's
I do,
official?
but I just want to give people a chance, because I got a chance to read this already, but I want to give everyone else a chance to read it. So the vote, Joanne, to be clear, would be about investigating it further, not making an official recommendation yet, right? Or do you want to?
I think you can make a recommendation.
Okay. So once everyone is done, I think we can. Any discussion on it before there's a motion? You want to have a discussion? You seem pretty easy.
I don't know.
Melanie, I see you saying yes. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sort of torn on it,
Sure.
and whether it's, I don't know if I would be fully on board with something that drastic, because the idea of bringing businesses down is to get tax revenue from those businesses, and this foregoes it for, progressively less and less, but over 10 years, so bringing these, it decreases the, you know, you're subsidizing New Balance, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, to, you know, multi, I don't know what their annual revenue is, but it's the sixth largest U.S. sneaker manufacturer in the U.S. So, I don't know, it concerns me, but I also see the benefit too. I mean, if competing towns are also offering this sort of thing, we need to be competitive at the same time. So, it's, you know.
I mean, we only have limited areas where commercial properties could go, so it's not really gonna have as much of an economic effect on areas of the town that are more like the bedroom community. You're talking about lots of land, like at the Shaw's Plaza where there's a big spot. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if, you know, we have very little amenities in town that's kind of on the outskirts? I mean, we all drive places to go to Target. I'm not saying I want Target there, but, you know, having a business like that might actually benefit the town in a lot of ways.
Right.
In 10 years seems like a long time, but in the grand scheme of the master plan, it's nothing.
Right.
And then you have revenue, and otherwise, honestly, I talk to people about would they ever consider coming to Goffstown, and they kind of laugh at me, you know, because they don't really feel that there's any incentive whatsoever, and other places do offer incentives. So it might be something to consider. I mean, that might enable us to not have to rezone so much more of the land in order to, you know, bring in a business that is maybe a little more sizable, that's going to generate more jobs, more opportunity for the community. And in the locations where it's going to be, it's not going to have the same effect as if we rezone and then we do this. That would be, you know, a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point about, I'm talking a whole lot about the tax benefits for the residents by bringing in new businesses, but there are also benefits to the residents by having businesses available locally that I don't think I've mentioned that much, so I appreciate that point you make.
That would be my only comment on it too, is that it would bring impacts into the community, jobs, as you mentioned, but also just bringing more opportunities for people to go out in the community and do things. And that's kind of lacking, especially out in Bernardville.
Anybody else? Do you want another chance to sort of go?
No, I just wanted to kind of
Sure. Yeah.
kick it around a bit.
I got you. It's better to kick it around than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a great point, but I keep going back to the tax incentive is only a new value added.
Okay, I did miss that.
It solidifies New Balance's entry into Londonderry and offers a tax incentive only on new value New Balance is adding to the tax base.
Okay, so in a situation where somebody were to move into the Shaw's Plaza, they would still have to pay the base tax, but then if they improved it, we would look at that actually.
So, I mean, and then going back to the job thing, when you look at some, you know, a company like BAE,
Yeah.
which is one of the examples that they give, and I mean, I feel like even if, I know a lot of people that work for BAE, but I know a lot more people that work for a company that sort of has some sort of relationship with BAE, if that makes sense, that
Yep.
it all kind of, it's spider webs.
Right.
Not that I want to focus on one particular, you know, example that's given, but I mean, I'm sure that we could find other, you know, examples of that, of how it just kind of affects the community over as a whole. So although I 100% see your point with, do we really want to give a break to this ridiculously large company, I think that there's a whole other side to it as well.
No, it's a valid point. You put a major player in additional restaurants and things to service that, and coffee shops, that kind of thing.
Childcare.
Yeah.
People are gonna have jobs, they're gonna wanna have a place for their kids.
Town park and ride.
And as those types of businesses are needed, I mean, a lot of those are the, you know, the individuals, the small businesses that are started because there's all of a sudden more of a need based upon the big business.
Does anyone want to make a motion? And if you
I'll make a motion that we recommend, were we working with exploring or to recommend?
Recommending, yeah.
Yeah, to recommend looking at using section 7281 as a way to draw more commercial business.
Okay, so motion by Melanie,
I'll second it.
second by Sarah. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. So we can go ahead and start with making that recommendation and see if we can get it onto the ballot. And that to me looks like, unless there's anything else, the end of our official agenda. So we will be meeting next month at Mountain Base, and the owner is very excited. I talked to him this past month, so we'll do that, and we're trying to get other businesses to come as well. So looking forward to that. With that, another motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion by Melanie, second by Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.